Hello, dear students. This is the video session in which I want to discuss something about Robert Frost and his poem Departmental. Listen once again. This is the session which mainly concentrates on Robert Frost and his poem Departmental. I hope you might have heard the name of the poet Robert Frost. Robert Frost is an American poet, a classical poet between 19th and 20th century American literature. Every one of us most probably have read one of his poems somewhere. Now let us see Robert Frost. Robert Frost, I told you, the American classical poet. Frost influenced a lot too many. And our first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, was immensely influenced and motivated, and I want to say inspired by one of his poems that I want to quote now is Stopping by the woods by snowy evening. Listen again. Stopping by the woods by the snowy evening. Uh, the title of the poem is very lengthy, but the message of the poem is very reflective and philosophical. The poet had a great vision in the poem Stopping by the Woods. Nehru was influenced by the whole poem, and the concluding lines of the poem Stopping by the Woods had changed the mind of the Nehruji, and he decided to make India modern by just two words of Frost. Now I quote concluding lines of Stopping by the Woods, the poem. Miles and miles to go before I sleep. See, miles and miles to go before I sleep. This is the concluding expressions of the poem Stopping by the Woods. The repetition of an expression, miles and miles to go before I sleep, it impacted a lot on the mind of the Nehru. It is just a reference that I want to give to you that this is how this is how Frost is a remarkable poet, and he is influencing many great personalities of the world. Those who read very closely Robert Frost, he could be changed himself. His mindset and principles of life, ideology in life, all could be edited, could be changed. Hence, his poetry has a great philosophical message with simple imagery or a metaphor in his poetry. And I want to say one more word on Robert Frost. There are many things to say. For him, there are many definitions for poetry, but Frost himself has given a definition to poetry. According to him, poetry should begin with delight and ends with a wisdom. Listen once again. Poetry should be begin or should begin with delight and ends with wisdom. And the definition itself has become the philosophy of his poetry. In most of his poems, we come across the delight and wisdom at the end of the poem. The reader should get it. Such a great visionary of America, Robert Frost is. Right. Now, I come to your present poem that you are going to study. A note on Robert Frost and his poem Departmental. Now you are going to study in the fourth sem BA BSc of Tumakuru University a poem that is Departmental is the poem. According to Frost, a poetry begins with delight and ends with wisdom. Just I told you. He uses common subject and brings out universal themes in his poetry. His major poems, I want to quote: The Road Not Taken, Mending Wall, Birches, Stopping by the Woods by Snowy Evening, and Departmental. When you just glance at the title of the subject of the is poems. We see the word in the first poem, that is road not taken. Road is very common. It's simple, usual. That is subject that he has taken. With that, he has given a wonderful uh, message to the people of the world. Mending wall. Wall is very simple, very common. That is thing. And birches, it is wonderful tree. Yes, a tree has taken. Stopping by the woods by snowy evening. Just snowy evening, woods. It is also quite simple. Uh, Subject. A departmental. In the modern world, uh, we see the popularity of department and departmental everywhere. The poem Departmental by Robert Frost was originally published in 1936. 1936. Frost is a great poet of nature, but he also a greater poet of humanity. Just we have seen that he has taken simple and common subject as a topic of his poems, and he is a lover of nature and a great lover of humanity. Humanity is the central theme of Robert Frost's poetry. In most of the poems, we may come across his love for humanity. Frost himself once remarked that he has written only two poems without human being in them. He himself remarked. Rest of the poems are having humanity. There is also a subtitle of the poem which is The End of My Ant Journey. The End of My Ant Journey. Departmental is a humorous satire where the poet describes that an ant on the tablecloth runs into monster moth of very big size. Seen how in the present poem, we see that the poet he has taken ant, A-N-T, not A-U-N-T. Ant, it is an insect, very small in size in the world of insects. He has taken ant as a central metaphor of his poem, The Departmental. Actually, people of the world today uh, they don't give any place for the small insect like ants. But here the poet Robert Frost has given importance for a small insect like ant, and he has taken ant. the major, that is the character in the whole poem. Throughout the poem, we see the hunt and its nature of work and its behavior, its attitude. We see that. And in the poem, particularly the departmental, the poet is having the theme of social organization. The poet is going to relate the act of hand to the human social organization. He is going to relate both. With the ant, the poet is going to speak on social organization. There are hundreds of social organizations, we see that, and social institutions. And here, the poet, he concentrated on social organization. How the sequence that ant is on and all around this institution. Departmental is a frost poem of 1930s, typifies its author in several ways. It is playful, full of clever hymns, and closely observant of a natural scene that mirrors the aspects of human life. In this, when the poet wrote the poem Departmental, it was declared as a era of depression. During that period, Frost wrote the poem Departmental. Frost focuses on a popular theme of social organization in the poem Departmental. It is almost a fable. It is an imaginary story where animals or insects they are taken for granted as characters, and that are reflecting the human behavior and have a message that they learn with the sharp irony of the poet. Though it implies rather than states it is moral. See, I told you already that ant is an important character and it plays important role. Around the ants, the whole poem develops just to reflect human actions and human reactions for the death. And as a central metaphor which reflects human behavior in the poem. To follow an ant on the tablecloth, the poem begins with this, an ant on the tablecloth. With this word, the poem begins. Nobody can observe uh, and the people today the least bother about the insect like ant, but it does an immense work and immense service. To follow an ant on a tablecloth, the poet speaks about dutiful and specialized behavior. Ant is known for a duty. It never forgets. unity and integrity, the words are most popular. The unity and integrity that we can find in the ants living. They, when we look at the ants, we can learn how man should be integrated and faithful, and you should have unity with his fellow beings. So here the poet speaks about beautiful and specialized behavior and character of the ant. Departmental focuses on ants' way of dealing with death. Here, the major character, the main character of Robert Frost, it is in the poem dealing with the way of death, dealing with the death. How the ant reacts to the death. What are the immediate reactions of the ant to the death? If a particular ant finds a dead moth, a dead butterfly, the fellow insects, its only obligation is to report the moth to the hive's inquiry squad. Even when it encounters the body of another ant, it merely informs the proper authorities who arrange for Solomon mortician to bring body back, body back home and give it a dignified burial while the rest of the uh, colony continue about their business. So the poet repeatedly telling and is focusing on the line that I want to say now. It could not be called ungentle, but how thoroughly departmental. With this, the poem is going to end. Which is the line. It could not be called ungentle, but how thoroughly departmental. How human behavior or human reaction to the death has become departmental is a tragedy for the poet. Man has become today more departmental enough in treating the death. On one hand, on the other hand, all his relationships are departmental. But ants are efficient enough in reacting to the death. For any action, they sincerely react as they worship. As observed, the ant excludes a host of what one considers human reactions. There is no surprise at death, no pursuing to mourn or reflect on its meaning. The ant does not slow down, he is not at all impressed. Other than the formal report, there is no talk, no standing around and staring as one expects at the scene of a fatal accident. Everything is routine, designated behavior, and prescribed ritual. Ants are efficient. They eschew all the impractical reactions of human beings. Frat's ants are not cruel. They are unfeeling and dramatic in their reactions to death, as though it has been decreed that death is, after all, a commonplace event that should not be allowed to interrupt duty or waste the time of the populace. Students, we shall see uh, a remaining discussion in the next session. Uh, Consider this as a part one of the poem Departmental, and in the next session I continue the poem and complete it. Consider that as a part second. A departmental poem, it has a two part for our convenient to read and understand. Uh, right now I am going to that is end this session, and let us meet in the next session uh, with a discussion on a departmental.